Good morning, everyone. Instead of me sleeping, I'm going to talk about communism. But I noticed on Twitter and on a lot of these debates that are happening online, something that really pisses me off, and I haven't seen a single person challenging this concept. So the reason for this video is for you to know how to challenge it when you see it on the Twitter, on various forums, or if heaven forbid you have communists in your life, then now you can know how to have a conversation. You see, the main problem with communism, like the inherent evil at the base of this ideology, is that their goal is to seize the means of production. So what does this mean? Well, it means taking stuff away from people, robbing people, basically, in a way that they make it sound civilized. And obviously this is not going to happen without violating the non-violence principle, because even they will say it that you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. So when you go for people's property, people tend to defend that property. I have seen a person on Twitter making a very interesting response, which I'm sure probably violated the Twitter's terms of service, but this shows why there will be violence when the communist revolution happens. A commie said, all of the things that are burning now in America, all of the businesses that are destroyed are just property. They're not human lives. And this person, which had an American flag in his avatar, said, my property has value to me, your life does not. Which, in a way, is codified in law. Like, you do have the right to defend yourself and even use lethal force against a home invader or against someone that breaks onto your property or whatnot. It's the classical American with a shotgun going, get off my lawn, you know, like it. They used to hang horse thieves, right? So, yeah, I mean, you're going to get into conflict with that ideology if you want to take away people's stuff. But anyway, right, now, here's the thing. Inherently, I just described, property is important for people. So how do you convince them to give away? Like, well, what is the morality that you give to them? And it's like, okay, well, we're just going to take away all your stuff, and then we're going to equally redistribute it. So the idea is that if you're a person that's not satisfied with your life, then they're going to take away the stuff of someone richer than you, and then they're going to redistribute that, so you're going to be better off after the revolution. That's the idea. And this is why Bernie Sanders eventually talked about millionaires, and when he became a millionaire, he started talking about billionaires. Like, it's always someone richer than you that's going to have his stuff taken away, and you're going to get that. It's never your stuff that's taken away. Like, you'll notice that. Like, there aren't communists that will say, yeah, when the revolution happens, like, I'll gladly give away my stuff. So that's like one of the ways that they convince people that their ideology is good. Just give us your stuff, sign on the dotted line, and we promise that once we get everyone's shit, we're going to equally redistribute. We're not going to hoard it for ourselves. No, we're going to give it back to the people. How kind, how compassionate, how can you not be with that? Okay. Now, the main purpose of this is power, obviously, like the group, the committee, the revolutionaries, the ones that are going to form a council, I guess, that will redistribute property. They will have the most power in a society since the medieval ages, because they're going to get to say which person gets stuff and which person has to wait. That is a control over people's lives that hasn't existed since the Age of Kings. That's a conversation for another time. Another way they want to convince you to support them is by creating a classification that doesn't exist in law, doesn't exist in real life unless you're a communist. Like, only they believe in this. And they separate property on personal property and private property. So I guess, like, personal property is your house, it's your car, it's your clothes, your toothbrush, and private property is your business. Okay, so the idea is that if you're a person just living in a one-room apartment, you have nothing to fear from the revolutionaries because they're not going to come in and take your stuff. In reality, in the real world, if you're not a communist, the separation of properties is in two main things. Like, it's codified into law. Like, you can pick a law book, but again, like, communists like changing definitions. So it's public property and private property. Okay, public property is the one that's managed by the government, by the state. It belongs to everyone. And private property is also separated into two categories. One of them are mobile goods. Every country has a different definition for them. And mobile goods can be things that are easily transported, a car, your laptop, the clothes, whatever you want. And then you have like the real estate, the immobile goods, the land, the house, an apartment, okay, your business. Right? That's how Americans separate property. But communists, in order to convince you to give away your property, they'll be like, no, we're not going to take your house, we're not going to take a car. But when you look into their ideology, that's also not true. Because if you actually have the unpleasant experience to discuss with the communists, they will say that they hate landlords, right? So if I have two houses, wouldn't they both be personal property by this definition? Because like you either consider a house to be personal property or you don't. So if I live in a 4-room apartment, would the revolutionary confiscate my apartment because it's too big and just give me one with one room? Or will they consider, no, that's personal property, so we're going to leave you alone? Okay, so let's say I live in a 4-room apartment and I want to allow another person to bunk in with me and, I get rent from him. Well, that's a huge crime in the communist ideology. That is like, no, I'm a parasite now and blah, blah, blah. But isn't it my personal property? Like, I thought it's personal. I thought it's mine. I thought I can do whatever I want with it, right? Like, if I want to rent someone a nice suit so he can go for a wedding, are you going to consider that parasitic as well? They probably would. But, like, the idea, right, that they will not touch your personal property is ridiculous. And it's not only that. Like, what about my car? What if I want to start a taxi driving company and I just, take people in and I drive them places? They will probably say, well, no, that's fine. But what if the car is automatic? It's like a new Tesla and it drives by itself and I just allow people to get in and they drive. Isn't that the same like giving rent? Like it's pretty much the same principle. What about loaning money? Is that not like being parasitic? I kind of find it interesting that they always pick on the landlords, but they never pick on the person that's giving a bank loan. And I mean, it's the same principle. You're giving a person money and then you're making a profit out of it. But like the problem is like you're going to have all these communists of different sects that will be like, oh no, I'm not an anarcho-communist. I'm a tanky. Oh no, I'm a syndicalist. I'm a blah blah blah. To me, it's like having Nazis just coming up and being, oh no, I'm not a national socialist. I'm a syndicalist national socialist. Oh no, I'm a democratic national. Like, oh, fuck off. Like at the end of the day, everywhere throughout human history, when the revolution happened, when the government was able to confiscate, like they had the power to confiscate the private property, they didn't make a distinction between public and private. I mean, in the USSR, the government controlled everything. They even controlled the houses that people would like. You don't like landlords? Well, now the government was the landowner. And if you badmouth the government, they can kick you out of your house. In fact, many times they had like big plans in certain areas and they wanted to build something there. And they would tell all the people that, well, now you have to move. Now, we're not even going to compensate. We were just going to give you a shitty tenant somewhere in the city. I don't care about if you like it or not. No, you're uprooting and you're living there. Oh yeah, but that wasn't real communism. No, but it started with the promise of it. No, that's the problem. The promise. They promise that they'll be good this time. And even then, let's assume that they legitimately only take away businesses, right? And they leave you with your house alone, they leave you with your car, they leave you with your computer and all of that. They still control people now. Because like if you want to work, you need to go and talk with the revolutionaries so they can give you a job. And then you have to be nice. And you have to do whatever they want and whatever they say. And you have to trust that they're not going to discriminate by giving their stuff to their friends. And you're not going to have nepotism. Like, here's the thing. Every single government in the world, and I don't care if they're like, because they say, oh no, like, we're not going to have a government. We're anarchists. We're going to have the will of the people. We're going to have democracy. It's like, listen, you twat. When you talk about nations with hundreds of millions of people, the only way you could channel that will, that energy, is through an institution. Whether that is a council, and you can name it whatever you want, it's still going to be a group of people at the end of the day that end up speaking for the entire country. And those people are going to be by default corrupt because they're going to have so much power that, as I mentioned before, kings and emperors from ancient times did. And again, you need to hope that they're not going to abuse it. But from my personal experience, all governments are corrupt. There isn't a government that doesn't have corruption. The problem is that if the government is small, it's irrelevant whether it is corrupt or not, because there's less to steal, there's less money coming in, there's less that they can affect people's lives. But if the government is so huge that it affects every single aspect of a person's life, even the way they think, even that, I mean, they get to control who gets food and who doesn't. They get to control who gets a job and who doesn't. They get to control all these things. Then when they're corrupt, it's like an octopus that's going to now affect every single fiber of your being. So, you know, like the idea of communism itself is that they're going to have like this overreaching government, this massive, massive government, which is the state. And after hundreds of years, like, people are going to be able to learn to live under communism, that the state will not be required and the state would just dissipate by itself. And this is like, you know, again, they'll say straw man, no, I'm an anarcho-syndicalist, I don't believe it. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know how human beings are. Like, once you kickstart the revolution and you show that violence is acceptable, you show that eggs can be broken to make your omelet, yeah, you're going to be shot by the more radical person. The one that's a little bit more pragmatic than you. And they're going to realize, well, we have all this power, like, why give it away? And then you're going to see, like, people who are further to the left just BTFOing the ones that aren't, which is what's happening in politics right now. Like, if you look at the Democratic Convention, it was literally everyone trying to out-left the other candidate. No, I generally don't believe in these horseshit ideologies like anarchism. And the natural state of man isn't anarchy. People want law and order. That's why we have law and order almost everywhere. You know, like, even in a place where you have a failed state, eventually mafia rises up, and that's going to be the law and order. Even in places like Somalia, you have warlords rising up, and that's their law and order. Like, the idea that people can just live, you know, without any sort of rules is ridiculous. But anyway, you know, like, that's a topic for another time, I suppose. To me, it's humorous, you know, like, when it's almost like listening to some neo-Nazi, and he goes like, no, we're not going to murder anyone this time around. We're just going to escort the minorities peacefully into a safe zone or something like that. It's like, you realize that even if you were to implement your plan, eventually someone more radical than you and more pragmatic than you, considering that you've normalized this idea, is just going to say, well, it kind of costs a lot of money, why can't we just get done with it? You know, like, that's the problem that you're having when you have like this fringe communist ideology that's like created in a way to sound so appeasing and nice, but at the end of the day, it's still daytime robbery. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.